right, so we're gonna talk Judge Dredd today. Not Dredd, but officially Judge Dredd.
I, I think we used Judge Dredd interchangeably with Dredd when we
Hmm.
talked about the reboot. But hey, whatever. It's
Yeah,
you clearly know what we're talking about.
yeah. I
Uh,
mean, it is his official title and name in the reboot too. He is Judge Dredd, but in an attempt to stand apart from the original 1995 movie, they just dropped the Judge for the title.
yes.
Um, and I do have to say, like, it does stand apart quite a bit. Definitely in the whole comic book feel because I didn't realize how much the 1995 movie really tried embracing the comic books in just complete 90s fashion. It was
Oh yeah.
definitely a trip rewatching this movie. Um, a great trip back to the future of 1995. Um,
I,
there was Mega City 1 this time around.
I gotta say, man, when you compare the two movies, yes,
Hmm.
Judge Dredd from 1995 is it's a little lame at parts.
Hmm.
Um, but you know what? Compared to the first time that I saw this movie, I gotta say, Joe, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I mean, it does a lot of the things that basically every action movie in the 80s and 90s does. So you could kind of think that it's a little bit of a bore for that reason,
Yeah,
because it feels like it's just a repurposed story of any other action movie wrapped in this Judge Dredd
yeah.
wrapper. But at the same time, I don't know, I think it's kind of fun in like a terribly awesome cheesy way. It is a fun movie. I mean, look at the thing how it starts out. You've got a comic book montage of all these Judge Dredd covers, and even some that are 2000 AD, so pre
Mhm.
actual Judge Dredd stuff. And then you get to the word crawl,
Yeah.
narrated by none other than James Earl Jones. So
Dude, it
paid
got me
only. That's the only thing he's in that entire movie is just the word crawl.
it got me pumped up. I'm not even trying to be
Hmm.
ridiculous or sarcastic here. Like to see that the comic book kind of flipping through it and
Hmm.
everything. Like this is obviously pre MCU, pre, DCEU. So
Pre
like
jujitsu,
pre jujitsu starring Nicolas Cage, you bet. I mean,
starring or featuring Nicolas Cage, I think is the
yes.
better way to place that.
Yep, game match set. But yeah, we'll go into, you know what, we're gonna cover jujitsu at some point, so you'll get
We'll
that
get there.
reference in a few weeks. But but you know what? Hey, if you had never seen like any kind of Dread stuff before,
Hmm.
and you saw like this first like 2 minutes, you would actually go, I I'm actually not like this isn't like like a hard hitting 90s cheesiness to start off with, right?
No, it's not. You've got like again that word crawl establishes the history, and then you go like almost right into the action. You meet the first part of like that formula to any 90s action movie, and that's just star power. And you get the
Oh yeah.
comic relief part of that with Rob Schneider right away in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Focusing on him in the very beginning of this movie was actually an interesting choice to me because in a lot of these action movies, especially the Stallone era and the Schwarzenegger era,
Hmm.
it's not often that you start off a movie that actually tries to build, right? Like
It
other,
did. It
yeah.
did try.
Not saying it succeeded, but
It did succeed.
it
Yeah, it
tried.
did. It
Yeah.
did something there.
Yeah,
Hmm.
but it at least introduces you to what the megacities are,
Yep.
and you get to see it through the eyes of someone who has literally been in prison. So it's like,
Hmm.
since you're seeing it for the first time, and this person's being reintroduced into the megacity, uh, you're it's just a kind of an interesting parallel.
Yeah, and if you're wondering
Yeah.
what the megacity looks like, strangely similar to the Mushroom Kingdom in the 1980s Super Mario movie, with a little more neon lights, and they don't have the go-kart like cars get around the city feel to it. But other than that, it's the same aesthetic.
Yeah.
Just grungy, overpopulated, tight area. Um, and that's Mega City 1 this time around.
I I've got to say something about this, Joe, that it might just be a limitation of, let's just say, the budget,
Yeah.
maybe the time period. But
Hmm.
what I thought the reboot of this movie got right was the fact that the megacities just felt like, when you look at like a downtown area, let's just say like an older city,
Hmm.
like it basically felt like in the reboot that's all they did was take like a high rise and then just multiply it by 100, right?
Yeah.
This look of Mega City 1 felt like it was a more of an original look, like maybe like you said, uh more true to the comics, right? Like
Hmm.
more true to what's coming off the page. Because
Yeah, it
yeah,
really tried looking at, like, again, like you said in Dread 2012, like they just took like a modern high rise and amplified it, and it looked like these buildings just looked like legitimate buildings that we could have now if we built them big and tall enough. Whereas the aesthetic for this one, it was future grunge and future rundown. If that's if really a good way to put any of it, because like the architecture was fairly different than what anything we have now, and you've got your droids walking around, like rolling around the city, offering recycled food, good for the environment, okay for you.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and yeah, they like Dread 2012 just felt like if shit went down today, this is what we'd end up with. Judge Dredd looks like if shit went down 100 years from now, that's what it would look. That's like it was supposed to be. Definitely going for more of a future look.
yeah. And I think that's really as far as it goes with the mega city vibe, though, right?
Hmm.
Because yeah, we get into a little bit of like the riots and how everybody seems to know that there's a lot of unrest given the circumstances of the judges and how they operate.
Yeah. We get
But
thrown to
Meg,
the Black War right away with if you need a villain in a hurry, you call James Remar, and he's there, and he's right away this movie in the first like 5-10 minutes, throwing shit down.
yeah, yeah, it's for me. This is like this is basically cookie cutter,
Hmm.
post-apocalyptic or dystopian future, just standard bullshit, right?
Yep,
Like it's over the
completely.
top. Yeah, it's totally cheesy. Which I will say that's probably the fault of Danny Cannon, who directed this movie, because if you've ever watched any of the CSI, Miami or New York or just the standard CSI itself, this guy was an executive producer on every single one of those. So
Suddenly,
the
Judge Dredd makes way more sense.
yeah, dude, it totally does. Because I mean, just think of putting a pair of shades on every time somebody talks in this movie. That's exactly what you could probably
It
shoehorn in
is.
there.
And I mean, it's too bad it wasn't like taking his helmet off after every line. Like, there's no, they didn't quite have that device. But I mean, the way you meet Dredd for the first time in this movie, it basically is like the I don't know, like the equivalent of Horatio, like putting the sunglasses on mid like one liner. Because this movie, actually, I don't know, this movie doesn't have a ton of one liners, but it does have a catchphrase in it throughout the entire thing.
Yeah,
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 the
it does.
yeah, Dredd basically will go through like sentencing options for the perp, and the perp will always say something like, "Oh, I'm not guilty," and you'd be like, "I knew you'd say that,"
Yeah,
and that
you'd
would
say
just
that.
would happen through the entire movie. Everyone would bounce around through multiple characters. Even the lovely Diane Lane used it once or twice. But yeah, but getting back to like when you first meet Dredd, you've got this block war going down. Diane Lane's character, Judge Hershey, is already there. She's under fire, waiting for backup. Dredd shows up. You see the classic 80s, 90s action cliche happens if someone recognizes the hero and is like, oh shit, that's Judge Dredd. And then immediately they're scared. Except
I
James
will.
Remar, who fires away.
I've got to say, Joe, when Stallone first rolls up, like here's the part I don't get. He couldn't have been that far away
Mm-mm.
because like they call him up on on the radio and everything, and he comes rolling up on this motorbike, and like there's no way that he wasn't just around the corner,
No, he
just
was
not
right
not paying.
there.
like
He's
like
like he was on a
he
break
should
in
have
a
been
hot
there.
dog or something. Yeah, he should have been
Yeah,
there,
he
just
should have been there.
slacking.
But as soon as he shows up, dude, and he gets off of this bike, I busted out laughing because
Was
he
it
steps
roughly
off.
when you saw the cod piece?
Well, sure, that's part of it, but like he steps off this bike, and whoever
Hmm.
was like in charge of the cinematography at that point, or just controlling the camera, like they're panning at his feet, and
Hmm.
he's awkwardly getting off this bike. Like when he gets off the bike, you can see like he crosses over his own feet, and so it looks really weird.
Yeah.
And then when they get to the top, like you see him like triumphantly standing there and almost smiling a little bit. And as soon as they do that, Oh my god, I lost it. I lost it. I was just laughing
How
the
couldn't
entire
you?
time.
You had
Yeah.
to have lost it. And another thing is that like again, they went so like comic accurate with the suits that they I don't know, it looks ridiculous. It just does. Like it works in for a comic book, but when you see like some guy who's supposed to be law enforcement with a giant golden eagle on one shoulder that is like physically molded into an eagle, and then like this other like weird, completely pointless armor on the other shoulder, like, who isn't gonna laugh at that?
he
You
basically
have
has a
to.
he basically has a 3 foot tall sandcastle on his fucking
Mhm.
shoulder, and
Yep.
just look at that, and he's like, I don't know if this is more Stallone or if this is just more Stallone as Dredd, but like he's sitting there acting like, like proud papa, like he's showing
Mhm.
off like his baby who was just born, like that's the way he's standing triumphant here, and oh my god! Like I said, if you're not laughing at this on your first viewing, there's something wrong with you
Oh,
because
completely.
yeah, it's fucking hilarious
You have
looking at
to.
this.
And then what's even better is like his just ridiculous, like you said, that ridiculous confidence that he has, that his little speaker comes out, he goes, I am the law. And he's telling them all to like stop doing what they're doing, whatever, and they fire away. And he doesn't move at all. And it
No,
just looks like he's supposed to be like this crazy badass that's not afraid of boats or anything. And he rattles off like what weapons they're using and how they are only like effective over 20 meters and they're 30 meters up. So why are you down on the ground, Hershey? Um, just just like supposed to be badass, but it does not come off that way. It's almost like more like he's a nerd who's just read the law book one too many times, and
yeah,
that's why he just knows these things so well.
that is the total vibe I was getting, was that he just
Hmm.
felt like a roided out bookworm, and I mean, the important thing to realize here, Joe, is that like we're not taking our position in 2021 here as a means
Mm-mm.
of saying that 95 was silly, right? Like there are people who said that this was silly in
In
95.
1995, yeah, yeah, it was definitely silly back then. And I mean, to its credit, it does try establishing like some like bigger like arcing story questions or kind of like a driving question for the movie itself.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, along with like it does like other comic elements well, but what the movie tries pushing is that Judge Dredd is so like hell bent on following the law to the letter that it's basically inhuman, and that the punishment that the judges give out is too harsh, and they need to be more human and less robotic in what they're doing. And they
Yeah.
try like basically breaking Dredd down and making him more human as the movie goes on.
Which, to be honest with you, Joe, the interpretation of Dread that we get before some of this, like, I don't know, the humanization process you talked about,
Hmm.
this is comic book Dread that we're seeing.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what comic book Dread behaves like. He is such a rule follower. It's to the point where he's a fascist. Like we talk about this a little bit in
Hmm.
our, in our reboot episode here later this week. But that's somewhat accurate to what he should be like. So for me watching this movie, I thought that they did kind of skip over
Hmm.
what's going on with the world around Dread, and they just kind of focused directly on like these isolated things that are going on with Dredd, with his leadership, and that's really the only areas that you see get focused here is those threads. That's basically it.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting where they really try showing like the reason why Dredd is the way he is. At one point he has to train some cadets, which also the whole like little cadet scene is hilarious, just in the fact that he's like showing them like this is the armor, this is the lawgiver Mark II, this is the lawmaker motorcycle, and
Yeah.
he's like firing at the armor, and which by the way, the armor is literally two shoulder pieces and a helmet.
Yeah.
And he's trying to act like it's impervious as he's shooting it. It's like you can shoot literally anywhere but four spots, because there's a cod piece. Anywhere but four spots, and you're probably going to kill the judge. Um,
Apparently Kevlar
mhm.
has not changed at all, even
Not at
though
all. Not at all. And there was a fun little element of humor the whole thing where he's like, you know, the red armor is yours when you graduate, and the lawgiver Mark II is
yeah.
yours when you graduate. The lawmaker is yours. And then the motorcycle breaks down
Yeah.
if you could get it to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, dude. And they that's the cheesiness coming through
Mm-hmm.
again, right? Like
Yep.
this is like, once again, this is less Dredd and more Sly Stallone in CSI. Like,
Yeah, it completely is. And it doesn't help that again, like, so the nature of an action movie at this time is campy cheesiness. And then there's something about the way they try to be accurate to the comics also just adds another layer of cheesy to it. Like the sets, the designs of the props and the uniforms, like it doesn't read badass or police or future. It's just nope, this is just one more hunk of nonsense added onto this movie.
it's really a testament though to why being too faithful to a comic can sometimes be a problem,
Mhm.
because when you look at the MCU as an example, they've taken some characters and they've made them look realistic, or maybe they've taken a design, like, let's just say like Yandu in
Okay.
the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mhm.
Like Yandu's outfit is absolutely ridiculous. His
Oh,
fin is almost
completely.
like yeah, the fin's like 4 feet tall.
Yep.
And so when they actually made the Ravagers, just look like mercenaries,
It worked.
Yandu,
Mhm.
yeah, he looks like an alien who is a mercenary. And you're not sitting there like going, what, like you're not analyzing how normal he looks as an
No.
alien, right?
Or I know everyone liked to, like, rip on Iron Man 2 there as well, but, like, have you seen Whiplash in the comic books? Where he's, like, blue and silver spandex with a deep V-neck cut and a green ponytail?
Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
problem was, Joe, was they didn't want to turn on viewers too much. It would
They
distract them,
way too distracted with the deep V.
just too hot. It's
Be
too hot,
staring
man.
right at, like, whatever the part, like, the mid pectoral is called on the anatomy, the
It's
little gap
pointing
there,
it's pointing
right
you
there.
towards Graceland, Joe.
Mhm.
That's what it's doing. Sorry to get off on a tangent there like we always do, but that's really the truth here, is
Yeah.
that when you take these outfits that, look good in a comic, and then you try to make them real and put them on real people, yeah, it just looks ridiculous, because not everybody is meant to look like a superhero, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah, and so it just didn't quite fit, but that's something the reboot would fix, and once again,
Yeah.
we're not going to dive too far into that, but what I think was really important to focus on with Dredd, because we talked about some things that just didn't work here, right?
Mhm.
The things
Lots
that
of
did
things did
work,
not work.
well, agreed, but like the
Mhm.
things that did work though, ironically enough, are things that the reboot didn't even spend time investigating, which would be the fact that Joseph Dredd is a clone,
Mhm.
and he has a brother whose name is Rico, who is also a clone. And
MacLeod, yeah.
so I have to say, one of the things about this movie that felt the most believable to me was Armand Asante playing Rico and almost doing like a pseudo impression of Sly Stallone.
Yeah,
Like,
that does work. Again, like another star power thing, because you got Armando Santi, who is, I think, had several nominations over his career, and he just he's kind of the most fun part of this whole movie. Is
yeah,
is
dude,
is his job as
oh,
the villain?
yeah, he really is. Like he actually reminds me kind of like a handsome Jack from Borderlands,
Oh
right? Like,
yeah, hmm
like there's a level of sadism to the character, yet there's also an equal balance of charisma that follows him. Because the way that Asante, portrays Rico, you do actually, you're kind of like, I wouldn't say you're behind him, because no one can
No,
really truly
you
get
should
behind
not.
him.
No, he is a bag of cats, mentally.
Yes. Yeah, but he balances for a time here. He balances that craziness, because one thing I want to point out is when he goes to meet with that, we'll call him just like a, I don't know, like a pawn shop owner, to pick up his old gun and suit, right? He goes to visit this pawn shop owner, and when he's having banter with this guy, like, Rico's got all kinds of bolts running loose
Oh
up in his
yeah,
brain, but the way that he interacts with this pawn shop owner, it feels just as normal as any interaction I've ever had with a stranger, where you're trying to play nice and
yeah.
find
And
commonality. Yeah.
also, credit to the pawn shop owner, like the actor who played him. Like this is an example of there are no small parts, just small people. And that guy was believable what he did. Like the part where he tries telling Rico not to touch the lawgiver, sounded like genuine concern, like, no, 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 don't do that, don't do that.
Yeah.
It's gonna take your arm off. Like, oh yeah, like that guy sold it really well. And if it
Yeah.
turns out he's not Australian, he sold it really well in Australian.
He did a great job, man. I'm totally in agreement with you. Um, that whole exchange just for me, like I'm just sitting there going, yes, this is a cheesy movie, and it didn't do very well,
Mm.
but I'm actually enjoying everything I've seen so far. If that
Yeah, a
makes any
little
sense.
bit. No, no, it makes total sense. And unlike the reboot, like this actually takes us outside Mega City 1 for a portion of the movie. We won't explain why, but Dredd and Rob Schneider end out in the Cursed Earth, where you get to actually interact with, the kind of people that are alive outside the mega cities. And it's kind of like I don't say like stereotypical like post-apocalyptic survivor where they're kind of like these odd mutant slash religious zealots that are living out there, also cannibals.
Yeah.
Because why not just throw all of that together? May or may not be a cyborg involved. Lots of crazy is out there on the cursed earth right now. And just that small scene was nice because it really like layered and built onto like the mythos or the world building that was done in Judge Dredd, where like mutants aren't necessarily like, pretty women with telekinetic powers or telepathic powers. It's like,
Yeah.
no, these are some crazy mutant dudes out here. Like this is scary times.
Which I gotta say, Joe, for folks of The Walking Dead, the leader of this like little family of mutants, or we'll just call them, deranged rednecks. The leader of them is Scott Wilson, Herschel Green himself
Oh,
from The
no
Walking Dead.
way.
Yeah, dude, that
Paul
is
was
totally him.
Herschel?
That was
No.
yeah, that's
Oh, I'm
Herschel.
so glad his head didn't get cut off in this movie.
Yes, yes, that was totally him, man. Like, and when I was watching that, I was just like thinking, like, this guy looks familiar, and then I just kind of like paused it for a moment, and I'm like, this guy just is missing a 3-foot beard. That's Herschel.
That's it. That's Herschel. Wow.
Yeah,
Did not see that.
yeah, Scott Wilson, dude. That guy was he had a long resume, so for him to pop up in a movie like this totally makes sense to me. But you know, once again, we've actually got some pretty good acting talent in this movie,
You really
right?
do.
Because outside of Scott Wilson, you've got Max von Sydow, dude, and I mean, he's like just as prolific as Scott Wilson, Well,
Mhm.
more I would say more prolific because Scott Wilson's really just really big in Georgia. Meanwhile, Max von Sydow is like 150, 200 movies to his credit.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, he's in this. Oh, and then Jürgen Prochnow, if you remember Jürgen Prochnow, he's the father of the Germans in Beer Fest. That's the easiest
Oh
way I can
yeah,
usually.
yeah, yeah. Because he's the evil justice that's up there. Because they are justices that sit up higher than the judges. Correct.
Yeah,
That's how that
yeah.
goes. Yeah. Because there's Chief Justice and there's yeah. It's basically the Supreme Court. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
he plays Judge Griffin, and I'm trying to remember who Sydow was. I think he was. Oh man, yeah, like he's a chief justice or of some
Hmm.
kind. But that's another good point to bring up here is that we really do get to see more of the intrigue, within the judges and their chain of command, right?
Hmm.
Because there are a few more things going on than just people shooting at each other, and so not to give the entire movie away, because honestly, folks, like yes, it's a cheesy movie, but I still think it's worth watching. Oddly enough,
Yeah.
um, but they take a chance to go into this. So we've talked about how Joseph Dredd and his brother Rico are both clones. We get to explore that side of the story a little bit more, and then we get to see exactly how the topic of cloning is used to kind of twist the knife within the leadership too. Um, so and that's because of something we haven't even really mentioned yet, is the fact that Joseph Dredd gets framed for murder, and and his brother is the reason for it. That's the whole
Yeah.
reason why this movie's even happening.
Yep. That's it. That's it. That's it's the driving problem behind this whole movie. Because you get basically their similar DNA when used as evidence against Dredd is what damns him and is what yeah, so gets him arrested essentially.
Yeah.
And so the whole movie is trying to stop Rico, and Rico um, he awakens like a when he's at the pawn shop more or less,
Oh yeah,
awakens the
that's the
old ABC Warbot.
yes, yes,
Hmm.
yep,
And which, by the way, this thing literally has a flat top on it, which is
yeah.
pretty great. A flat top haircut, molded into the head of this robot, and it's big. Basically, it's got a claim to fame is that they will not stop shooting until like they're like blown up, more or less. And they're just like basically walking tanks with machine guns built into the knuckles. It's cheesy but kind of great. And yeah, so Rico's just running amok, doing his own plans, and Dredd's got to stop him. And that's all the plot we really need for the movie.
Well, and unfortunately, it's the majority of the plot that you do get, but I I
Yeah.
do think that they did a decent enough job
Hmm.
kind of showing how and this is piggybacking off of literally what I just said about Rico. Like there are moments in this movie where you kind of feel like Rico has like moments where he is lucid.
Hmm.
And then as the movie continues on and he realizes just how much of an advantage he could have if he applies a little bit of pressure, he just becomes unhinged. Like
Yeah.
like just the perfect villain after a while. And once again, I don't know if this is actually the writing or the directing or if it's just Armand Desante like just killing it. Either way, he's totally believable and like carries the movie outside of the like the the Joseph Dredd parts.
I mean, I kind of want to think that it was Armand doing this, and it was just like, you know what, when he's on screen, just let him do him. But then again, at the same time, could Stallone actually like, play off that well, or would he just be confused? I don't want to I don't want to say like Stallone is a dumb man, but I don't think improv is his thing.
I mean,
He's more of the
yeah.
guy who wants to make sure he has enough electricity to run his blender to make daiquiris during a tropical storm.
For
Then,
those, yes, for those listening at home, this is a true story. I used to work for a generator company who had a contractor who installed a backup generator at Sylvester Stallone's house in Florida. He only had two things on this generator: his daiquiri machine and his hot tub. Those are the only two things he chose to back up.
and he's the law, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say that he's an idiot by any means, but the man knows what he wants. I'm guessing that's a technical thing,
Hmm.
and that's why improv is probably not his best, his strong suit.
Yeah, probably not his
To say.
forte. I think he's definitely more of a, and again, as the character, he's more of a by the book sort of guy. And improv isn't his forte.
But Joe, I will say, um, his ability to be so rigid in this movie, I think, could be involved with the fact that he is a clone, and maybe that's the problem, right? Because we
Hmm.
find out that like he's been told a lie his entire life that he thought he had a family that passed away, and it's like no, you were born in a test tube, and that's why you are so strange. So it could be equal parts script and equal parts acting interpretation. Because if you look at other people in this movie, Joe, like Jurgen Prochnow, who's just a good actor, don't get me wrong, but he's very intense. He's very
Yeah.
layered. There's a lot of different things that you get from that character. Max von Sydow, once again, great actor. But you truly see the pain on his face when they have to, sentence Joseph Dredd, in the movie, and you see just how much it hurts him.
Hmm.
So and then Diane Lane, like Diane
Yeah.
Lane's character, she's intense as well. She does a really good job in the parts where she is in this movie. So
Hmm. And I mean,
yeah,
you do have the unfortunate, like, classic 80s, 90s terrible cliche is that just because she is a woman and she is attractive, she is therefore a love interest in this movie. It just that part felt shoehorned in and not exactly entirely natural. Because again, Dredd is not a man who strikes me as someone who cares for frivolous things such as love. He
I
is a
mean,
man only of the law.
which once again, I think it could just be just as much the script. I mean,
Mhm.
because keep in mind, Joe, we just saw Demolition Man 2 years before this.
We did just see Demolition Rose. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so you
And
saw
at least there's
Sylvester.
no uncomfortable, weird, like hand touching mind sex machine scene
I
in
would
this
have,
one.
I could care to see more of that. I mean, you want to jazz this movie up a little bit. I think we could have definitely used that one, but I think that's really what we're looking at here. Like, I think the cheesiness feels like, or his one-liners, I'll say, I'll be specific. The one-liners that he has feel even stranger because of how rigid he is with everything else he does.
I knew
So,
you were going to say that.
well, yeah, God damn it. Yes, exactly, Joe. You're getting the point. Um, but yeah, that's what I think the issue really is here, man. Like, you have the guy who literally directed CSI Miami behind the helm of this. Of course it's going to be cheesy as fuck.
Yeah.
How else could it not be?
Yeah. It has to be. And like this is even like this is like pre procedural cop shows. Or would it be considered pre procedural cop shows? Because I guess there's like procedural cop stuff before, like in the 90s and everything. It wasn't necessarily as big as what we got in the 2000s. But here we get a procedural cop movie in the future with Sylvester Stallone. So yeah, you basically have to crank everything up to 11 uh in that circumstance.
What and once again, like, Joe, I was fully prepared to, treat this as like any kind of like bad movie marathon where you get your friends together and you drink and you just make fun of it. Because I remember when I first saw this, like, obviously, like, a teenager, preteen, actually. The first time I saw this, I was like, man, I didn't walk away from it really even, thinking much of it.
No. Mm-mm.
But going back to it and watching it, for this, it was like, this isn't actually that bad of a movie.
No, it
Uh,
tried. It walked hard. It really did.
and this is also a pre-CGI world, Joe.
It
Remember
is.
that.
This is all set building here, which is
Yeah.
something. It's like Mega City 1 is like miniatures and sets, and it's fun in that respect. Like the I don't want to say like the visuals don't hold up. They don't really hold up because it's just again it's a 90s future aesthetic. But like as far as like looking like fake, they don't look fake. It looks like the buildings are there, which is, a great job on their part.
Well, but you mentioned the ABC Warrior. Like, the ABC Warrior looks legit.
He
I
does.
mean, that, yeah, that's a real piece that they used.
Yeah.
Um, and then the Angel Gang that we talked about, like the son that has the dial on his forehead, that's got like
Hmm.
this reinforced spine and like,
Yeah.
like a metal arm. Like, I'm sorry,
Hmm.
Joe, that's a triumph right there
That looked really good.
of
Which did
of
you
the mid
did you look at this?
'90s.
Is this Stan Winston working in this at all by any chance?
You know what? I'm not sure. I
I'm
am
not
not
sure
100
either.
percent
I
sure.
mean, I was looking at him like, you know what? I don't know if this is like Stan Winston's like shtick, but like, fuck, it looks like Stan Winston quality, like good work. And if you're not familiar with Stan Winston, uh, pick an 80s sci-fi movie where the monsters that looked good in them, likely Stan Winston was behind it. He was behind, I think, the look in Alien and Aliens. He
Yeah.
was the one who redesigned Predator, which if you ever want to like look into Predator and look at
Yeah.
what the original design was, hilariously bad. It was so bad to the point where they had shot most of Predator without any of the Predator scenes because they kept waiting for the suit to arrive.
Yeah.
And then they have most of the movie done. The suit finally gets there. They shot one scene and they're like, we cannot finish this movie with this suit. Like it will get laughed out of every theater. And
Mhm.
they stop shooting. They call Stan Winston. He redesigns it, and we get the iconic look that is the Predator now. And again, like when you look at like when you think of those movies and how great those monsters looks, even if this member of the Angel Gang is not necessarily like an iconic movie creature or movie villain, he looks very well done. Like you don't see like bad makeup apps. You don't see seams in any of the prosthetics where you could see like, oh, that's where the mask touches another part.
Yeah.
It just all looks really good.
I was gonna say, Joe, the stuff in this movie that needed extra touches, they look
They
legit.
gave it, yeah. Like this was again big budget movie that they really stuck the budget into every ounce of this movie. They just didn't end up paying off for them.
Yeah, I would say that the effort was definitely put into the world building and, probably the research of the Dredd universe, or the 2000 AD universe, because that, like, the stuff they introduced you to, honestly, you'll hear this a little bit about my gripes with the reboot, is that's the stuff that really is interesting. It's not just seeing a large, dystopian city that you've seen in almost every relevant
Hmm.
sci-fi from the '80s and early '90s.
Yeah.
It's the stuff that's going on outside of that. So it's the It's the cursed earth, it's the mutants, and just the stories that could live out there. That's the stuff that you really want to dig into, as well as the cloning arc and Rico that we've mentioned too. So they didn't do a bad job with introducing those elements, which is what makes me kind of feel bad, for the things that didn't work in this movie, because like you said, totally outweighs the good that they did here.
Yeah, it really does. Although, like, again, if you have to like really think about this and you have like a night where you've got really nothing going on, your friends are sitting around doing nothing. I mean, this movie's on Hulu. I am not gonna say don't watch Judge Dredd. Like, if you've got nothing better to do, fucking put on Judge Dredd. Like, at least like one of two things is gonna happen. You're gonna walk away from this like, you know what? It wasn't good, but I didn't hate it. Or you're gonna laugh the whole fucking time and just enjoy yourself.
Well, and that's what the whole experience for me was that there are parts of this movie where, yeah, I busted out laughing, and not because they intended to, or
No,
they
it's
didn't intend
because
for me to do it.
it didn't intend. It just turns out this is a silly piece of shit.
Well, I mean, there are parts of it that are completely silly and ridiculous,
Mhm.
but there are other meaningful elements of this movie that are well done. And so, yeah, to kind of piggyback off of what you said, I think there are people who may have heard about this movie that have avoided it just because of the rumors and the perceptions others have had of it. But yeah, if you actually go back and watch it, I guarantee you, there's going to be people pleasantly surprised with this.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to say that.
God damn it, Joe. Fucking hell.